understand these myths that sometimes we encourage or we encounter in our marriages, that sometimes we go, something doesn't make sense. So you can find the link on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever you all do. But so I'm going to encourage you, since we're starting today, please like, share, comment, let us know your thoughts. Marriage is hard. It is hard. So we want you to just share the message, but share, the link with somebody that you feel will be happy to go through this journey with us. So, all right. So we are going to just go through some of our additional myths. We are not going to be before you long, but just go through some of the additional myths that Pastor Nick went through. Mm-hmm. And one of the ones is that marriage goals are all the same, which means everything's the same. Marriage is the same. You and I have the same goals. People have the same goals, and that marriage goals are all the same. So, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, really all marriages have to be different because they consist of different people. I'm not the same as you, and you're not the same as me. I'm not the same as you as my spouse, and you're not the same as I am. Yeah. So we have to have different goals. We have to have different. Each marriage has to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think people get into trouble comparing. So I think that's a really good point. That our goals are different. And it has to be because we're all different people. But I think when we start to compare, and we look at couples, we look at things. We can admire things about people, but when we start to compare our lives with them and feel inadequate, I think is when we sometimes get in trouble.
I think it's possible that we can learn from other couples.
That's true.
We can learn from their mistakes, and we can learn from their strengths. But as far as like comparing our marriage to someone else's marriage, that doesn't work because again, we're different. We're all different people.
I'm laughing because I think how many times do we say, you don't do this and you don't do that. Her husband did it, her wife did it. So we compare. Now I don't think it's bad to have goals. I think if you're in a couple relationship, this is even before you get married. I think you want to have goals and you want to establish what kind of relationship do we want to have. I think we give more thought about a grocery list or a Christmas list and shopping for people than we actually do to marriage goals and family goals. So, I often suggest that people sit down and write a plan, nothing in detail, but, before we even get married, what are your concepts of marriage? I watch a lot of reality TV, and I sit there and go, what were you thinking? Did you think he was going to stop going out after he got married? His thing was that he didn't think he needed to. So
I was going to say, I like the analogy that you gave of the grocery list. Mm-hmm. The grocery list in our house is going to look way different than the grocery list in your house. Mm-hmm. So I think going back to, a marriage, you can't compare. I can't compare the foods that I eat necessarily to the foods that you eat, and so I can't really compare what makes my marriage compared to yours. Yeah. I think you need to think of it as a grocery list. It's going to be dependent upon the individual likes of the marriages.
Yeah. So I think that's good, and I think we should just keep it practical. I think sometimes we overcomplicate things and we make it difficult. It really, I think what happens, and we're going to move on to our next myth. I think what happens is when we make things too complicated, we make things that we have to do things a certain way. The difficult part of this in developing even this marital grocery list, the difficult part of this is conversation and communication. Because it forces you to actually talk to your partner. Or before or after marriage. I really suggest doing this before marriage, but it really forces you to find a way of communicating with your partner that you both can understand. So it's good practice, but you have to learn. You may have a goal in marriage that may not be my goal, or I may not understand your goal. So it really does require two people to sit and communicate, and which is good. Because you learn how to practice and navigate through conflict to actually establish where you want to go with your goals.
The other thing that I was going to just say finally is, before we move on to the next myth, is that just as we were just comparing marriage to a grocery list, the foods on your grocery list may be not contagious for our family. or may not work well for our family.
It's okay.
Well, what I'm saying is that I may have allergies to things
Oh,
on your grocery list that perhaps you don't have an allergy to. So what works for your family doesn't necessarily work for my family.
okay.
So I think that that's always a good point to keep in mind too. So the danger in comparing your marriage to someone else's marriage is that what works for that marriage may not work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and I think that's the kind of the point of linked couples ministry is that you are coming together and talking to and other couples. You know, it's nothing wrong with learning from others people's experiences, realizing that each marriage has its own journey, it has its own flavor because you're two individual people. So that myth that all marriages are the same is wrong. Is definitely 100% wrong. Or I won't say wrong, but it needs some work. So the second myth that Pastor Nick talked about was this is a big one. If you love me, accept me the way I am. Okay, I'm gonna let you start with that one.
Well, I want to take it down a whole different path where she's probably thinking.
Okay.
But I think that Pastor Nick and Bishop have for a long time talked about how God loves us and accepts us as the church. The church consists of people that come in at all stages of their lives. Not everybody in the church is saved. Not everybody in the church believes. And God still accepts them anyway. Does not mean that God does not expect us to change. And I think that Bishop and Pastor Nick have talked about that. And I think the same thing is probably true in an earthly marriage. That no, we don't necessarily have to accept all. We don't expect that you're never going to change in the course of a marriage. I think I said the last presentation that I am not the same today when I entered into this relationship and entered into this marriage as I am today, some 60 years later.
Not 60 years.
30 years later.
Okay, God.
37 years later. I forget however many years it's been.
Change your name to Methuselah.
But the bottom line is that I am not the same person as I was then. So, I think that it would be a wrong belief to think that, or it's a myth to think that I'm never going to change, or that you're never going to change in a relationship, or that we should expect our partners to maybe change and accept who we are continuously.
Wow. That was definitely a different path. A good path. But my brain didn't go there. I think you're a much nicer person than I am. And so when we talk about, accepting those things that I was really thinking, accepting those things that get on our nerves, and you're 100% right. I love the analogy that you made about how Christ accepts us as we are, but that doesn't mean we stop growing. That doesn't mean we stop changing. So I 100% agree with that. But, in practicality, in living with there are things that everybody does to get on everybody else's nerves. And it's what it is when we make that statement of, well, you just have to accept me the way that I am. What is that really saying about your partner, or your willingness to meet the need of the partner? So I think that's, to me, the greater question or the greater comment. Although I love what you said, because that is I think a really good analogy, because we, what Christ expects us to do. But if something is happening, and we've been through this lots of times, I don't think people can live together and just find nothing that gets on anybody's nerves. I don't think it's possible to do that. But you learn, to fight your battles. What are those things that I do, although I don't have any of these things, what are those things that I do that could possibly get on your nerves?
Sorry.
Okay. Well, the point is this. The point is this. When we talk about accepting me the way that I am, of course, I accept you, and I hope you accept me for the foundations of who I am, the person I am. But the small things that I may do, or the things that may strike a chord with you, I have to hear that. I have to hear that. And then I think sometimes when I say I have to hear that, I have to hear how serious it is for you. Because I think we talked about in the last part of the discussion, we all have stuff. We all have triggers. We all have baggage that we bring into our relationships. And although the thing that's bothering me may not seem big to you, it may feel big to me. So I think sometimes we get in trouble when I may say, I don't like when you leave, this on the floor or this, for you, it's like, it's no big deal. But I'm like, no, maybe I grew up in an environment that means something to me. So I think it has to be a mutual respect.
Yeah, and again, going back, I like the analogies that you throw up. When you talk about baggage, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes our baggage, we all bring baggage into a relationship. We all have things in our lives that have impacted us that we bring into the relationship, and sometimes we have to determine whether or not my baggage, is too heavy for you to carry.
Ooh, I like that one. Okay.
My baggage you might not be able to carry my baggage, and so I think
That's good.
And then the other part of it is, if my baggage is too heavy for you, then am I able to maybe work to take some things out of my baggage so that you can carry it?
Yeah. Now, I think that's mutual assistance. But I like that because your baggage may be too much for me. And I think once again, it goes back to communication. We all have stuff, but I have to communicate. And this is too much. This is too much. And I know we're joking, and I know it sounds light, but I know this is some serious stuff that we're talking about, because I know we all in marriages, we've been together 44 years. We all get to that impasse and go, can I really do this? Do I really want to do this? And how do I do this? Because I don't know if I have the skill sets. I don't know if I have the patience. I don't know if I have the understanding. I don't know if my baggage is going to be too heavy for me. And then I got to take your baggage. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming, and sometimes we have to reach out for help. We do. There's nothing wrong with getting some help, calling church for counseling, maybe even talking to a couple that you trust, that you have that relationship with. But that's a good point.
But yeah, and I think that it's a mutual give and take. I mean, I'm expecting you to be able to carry some of my baggage.
Sure.
But I also have to be willing to take some of the things out of my baggage so that you can carry it.
Yeah.
So it's not just accepting me as I am or accepting you as you are. It's what am I willing to give and take so that we can carry each other's baggage.
Yeah. And I think, because I know we have to move on because time goes really fast. I think one of the things that Pastor Nick said is that it doesn't take anything away from you to meet the needs of your spouse. It doesn't take anything, it take the pride out of it, take the judgment out of it. When you truly love someone, I don't want you to carry baggage. I don't want you to carry that baggage. And you shouldn't want me to carry my baggage. So it doesn't mean that we co-wound each other. It doesn't mean that we just ignore the baggage, but we find a gentle, supportive, loving way to first identify the baggage or help that person identify the baggage and say, you know what, as your life partner, I want to be here to help you to unpack that baggage, because the greatest gift that I think we can give each other is authentically being who we are and connecting on that level. So that's a really good point. I don't want to carry your bag, and I don't want you to carry my bag. I don't want to carry my bag. So it's an important thing to realize that it doesn't take anything away from us to try and meet the need of our partner or our spouse. It doesn't lower the situation in any way. So that was good. That was real good. That was good. All right. I think we have one more myth to go through, and I think we are done. All right. Another myth: would you rather be? Okay, this may cause a little bit of a problem. I'm letting you know now. Would you rather be happy or right? Okay, and I am listening very carefully on this one.
I plead the fifth.
Let me repeat it for you so you can think before you speak. Would you rather be happy or would you rather be right?
To be honest, I'm going to say for me, It's perhaps a little bit of both.
That's a safe answer.
Um, because I'm never right in this relationship. No, I was going to say perhaps a little bit of both. Um, yeah, I mean, there are times I always want to be happy in our relationship. And for me, being happy, I know that I can't be truly happy in this relationship if my wife is not happy, and I want her to be happy. And I want her to smile. I love seeing my wife smile. I'm sure as most of you like seeing your spouses smile. But there are times when when I like to be right as well. You know, there are times when I would like to get the power assigned in an argument. But I would probably say I would rather be happy. But there are times when I know that I need to walk away from an argument. There are times when I know I need to say, okay, I don't agree with you, but
Yeah.
we're gonna. I don't agree with you. This is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And then we move on. There are times when I need to take space from the argument and put a little distance in the argument because that helps me to have a different perspective. The challenge in our relationship sometimes is that sometimes it's difficult for us to take that space. I'm a person that likes the space. My wife wants to handle a situation quickly.
If you remember, you're a lemon.
And she's an orange. So we kind of handle the way that we kind of resolve conflicts. Sometimes we have different individual choices as to how we handle our conflicts. But the bottom line of it all is that we do have to kind of come back and talk about the disagreement or the issue. And even though we may not be able to agree, in that moment. We may have to take some space and come back and have further discussion about it. But the bottom line is that we always have to come back and discuss it, even if we don't always see eye to eye on it. And that's okay.
It is okay. It is okay. And that takes practice. That takes practice because we communicate differently. And I'm a natural talker. You're probably not a natural talker, And one of the things in terms of, we talked about this the last time is understanding not only the baggage, but the things that we bring into a marriage. And, I don't sweep things under the carpet. I think if you keep sweeping stuff under the carpet, pretty soon that carpet gets pretty lumpy and you walking and crunching on a whole bunch of stuff.
And I'm completely the opposite. Sometimes I think it's okay to sweep a little bit under the carpet as long as you come back and you unsweep it out.
There you go. That's the important point, though. That's the point. So we can stick it under the carpet for a minute. But I think what happens is and I think we're all guilty because life gets busy. We may put it under the carpet and say, okay, we'll come back to it, but then we never come back to it. And before you know that, those things that we're supposed to come back to become resentment. And we start making those statements, well, you always do this and you never do that. Because you're speaking not out of only that experience that you're in, you're speaking from that experience of all that stuff that's under the carpet that you never got resolved. So I think one of the main points that I think we've had to develop is, and we talked about this the last time, it's figuring out, okay, if you need space, that's fine, but it's your responsibility to tell me when we're going to come back and talk about this, because that kind of is the best of both worlds. If the person can't talk about it in that moment, you have to respect that, because the ability for someone to hear you or learn anything from you when they're in a heightened state or just not emotionally balanced at that point is zero. You can't hear anything. I can't hear anything when we're in that moment. So you take a minute and come back, but you have to say, okay, fine, let's do this. We'll do this on this date at this time, or give me 15 minutes and I'll come back and talk about it. Now, if you say 15, that doesn't mean 25. It means 15 because you're asking me to put my needs on hold to meet your needs. And I'm willing to do that, but it has to be a mutual understanding that this is the way I need to get my needs met. This is 44 years of working this stuff out, let me tell you. So I want you to understand that these myths are things that can change, alter not only a marriage, but your personality as well. So we want you to really understand, it takes time. It just takes time. And I think the second thing, it takes patience. And it takes a mutual desire to, and I think this is one of Pastor Nick's points, is that it takes a mutual desire to want to meet your partner's needs, to want to make sure that they're happy. Nobody wants to live with a miserable person. So to make sure that it doesn't take anything away from you to try and meet your partner's needs. So I think that went fast. So I think we're running out of time. And so are there any final things that you think you want to say in terms of people getting married, new in marriage, old in marriage, that you would share? People ask me all the time, what's the secret? You've been, married for so long. What's the secret? I'm like, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But what are some things, or maybe one thing you would say to a couple?
I would say that communication is extremely important in any marriage. And I would say that it's extremely important in any relationship before you get married.
Yeah.
Communicate, talk with your partner, talk with your spouse. How do you perceive handling conflicts in the future? How do you perceive handling conflicts once you get married? How do you work out the minute details of a marriage? Paying the bills.
Yeah.
That was a major one for us because her paying bills was different than the way that I would pay bills. So even the minute things which make up a marriage, I think are things that you need to talk about before you enter that marriage. I think it's really important to like your partner.
Oh, you took mine.
To see that partner, see your spouse as your friend. That person, you have to know in your heart of hearts that person has your back. And even if you don't always agree with everything that's being done or being said, you have to know that your partner has your back. That's the way that God made couples and marriage. Eve was made to be a support to Adam, and vice versa. So, see that partner as your friend.
Well, that's a really good point. And that was one of the points Pastor Nick talked about. He says, where there's trust and friendship, these conversations can be worked through. Trust and friendship, and so I'm going to echo what you said, because that's probably the thing that I always say as well. Do you like your partner? Do you like your spouse? We know the whole thing with love, we got that. But do you enjoy being with them? Not doing anything, but just sitting in the house, watching TV, riding in the car. What are those things that make you laugh? So if we can stay focused on that and go back to the thing that we said in the very beginning, will this person intentionally hurt or harm me in any way? If I keep focused on that and I can answer no to that question, then I think, once again, there's always hope. So,
and can I just add one last question?
We're about to end, but go ahead.
I just wanted to say that just remember that in any marriage, you're going to have pitfalls sometimes.
Yeah.
You're going to have those down moments where things look bad and things don't look positive. But you have to remember that is just one moment in the course of a marriage, in the course of a relationship. And so sometimes I think it's too easy for people to come out of a marriage rather than stick it through, speak to God about it.
Yeah.
It's too easy to come out of marriages.
And not only that, because I know we have to get ready to end, but I think you're living in the moment. It's one moment in time. And I won't do my Whitney Houston, but it's one moment in time. It is. And then do everything in front of God, meaning make God the center of who and what you're trying to do. Start with prayer in those heated moments. Just remember, I am not your enemy. I am not your enemy, and start the conversation with prayer. Well, as a lemon, you did pretty good. So we have to wrap up. That went really fast. I just want to encourage everyone. Linked Couples Ministry meets every second Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Facebook and Twitter. Really, send in your suggestions for, I don't do any of that. Send your suggestions in for anything you want to talk about, any topics, anything that you want to learn. I will really strongly suggest that you look at Pastor Nick's series on marriage. They've been a blessing to us, and we want them to be a blessing to you. So God bless. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining.